What do you think it would take to disprove God? That's an Here's the thing, Robert. I know we're doing super chats and stuff. We're going to check out a video. This is actually connected to the sort of overall topic of the video. What do you think it would take to disprove God? I actually think that's almost like it's different, but it's almost like saying, David, what do you think it would take to prove that you don't exist? Like, what evidence could someone give me that I don't exist? People are like, no, you think you got, no. I'm saying it's a different kind. It's not like normal things. Like, what evidence could you give me that this cup doesn't exist? Well, guess what? You could. There are other possibilities. Like I'm in the Matrix, or I'm dreaming right now, or something like that. There are other possibilities. If you gave me enough evidence that one of those other possibilities was the correct one, I would say, okay, you can actually prove to me that this cup doesn't exist. If you said you wanted to prove that I don't exist, the answer is nothing. There's no amount of evidence you could ever give me to convince me that I don't exist. You could get 1,000 PhD philosophers and 1,000 PhD scientists and 1,000 you could get every educated person in the entire universe talking to me. Matter of fact, you could get God talking to me and saying, David, you don't exist. It wouldn't convince me that I don't exist. Why? Well, the same reasoning that Descartes lays out in his Meditations on First Philosophy. If you're trying to convince me of something, then obviously I exist. And in other words, if I'm understanding you trying to convince me of something, obviously I am something that exists. I may not be what I think I am. I could be a brain in a vat or something like that. But at the very least, I am a thinking thing, and a thinking thing is something that exists. So my view would be that God is actually more similar. God is kind of in that category of something where, like, if you were talking about my own existence and convincing me that I don't exist, it's like me existing is necessary for me understanding what's going on, and therefore you couldn't give me any evidence because my existence is required for me even understanding anything that's going on. I think God is more along those lines. If God is necessary for there to be a universe, and even there, you wouldn't say that God is necessary for there to be a universe. That would be an evidential claim, because there could be other possibilities, and people have suggested other possibilities and so on. But you go kind of down the list of what, if you were trying to convince me with evidence, what needs to be in place for you to be able to convince me that, let's say, God doesn't exist. What evidence could you give? It would always be in my head, okay, in order for you to convince me of anything, we have a universe. That's used in the cosmological argument. We need a finely tuned universe. We wouldn't even exist if we didn't have a finely tuned universe. You need life. You not only need life, you need human consciousness. That's a specific kind of life. You need human reasoning ability, and so on. You need laws of logic. You need all kinds of things, but you start getting into like the conceptual realm, like moral laws and logical laws and mathematics and so on. And it's basically, in order to understand any of this stuff, any of the things we would understand, any of the arguments you'd be using, you have to show that there's some other any foundation you have that fits all this stuff is going to be an awful lot like God. So how would you use it to disprove God? You need to show that there's something else that is exactly like God that accounts for all these things. And that's just, I don't know, that's just weird. So yeah, how do you come up with another ground of possibility, another ground of logic, another ground of morality, another ground of just all the stuff they were talking about, mathematics and information and so on. Anything that could actually account for this that wouldn't be God would be so much like God. I don't know. I think if you really wanted, you'd have to hit me repeatedly in the head with a baseball bat until I lost my ability to think, and then I wouldn't understand arguments at all, and then maybe I would believe some argument that you gave me.
See, there you go. There's a solution.
You see, you can prove it. I actually want to figure out how to say what I just said, but in a clear, concise way. Because that's just the way it seemed to me for years, that talking about what could disprove God, because in philosophy you have this idea of falsifiability, right? If you're putting forward a claim, it should be falsifiable in some way. You should be able to, if your claim is meaningful, there should be a way to show that it's false if it is. So anyway, and philosophers have a problem if you put forward a claim that's not falsifiable. We'll put it this way: there are different kinds of, they're a different kind of claim. But here's the thing: it's like the claim that I exist, from my perspective, is a non-falsifiable claim. It's in a different category as far as what kind of claim it is. And my view is that, like, God's existence, even though you can make arguments for it and so on, it's so foundational to absolutely everything that once you see it, I don't know how you would make someone unsee it.
This reminds me of something funny, which is, I think yesterday or so, my wife, as she was sitting there, asked me to hand her this book, which is from Irenaeus Against Heresies. And she was looking something up, and she starts reading it. And for some reason, the translation, but especially the introduction of it, had this incredibly unnecessarily complicated language to it. It's like you open it up, and it's like, I don't even remember it. I probably have a photo of it right here, probably because I took a photo of it. But it's like an incredibly unnecessarily lengthy and complicated, huge sentence. And she's like, "Do you understand what this is saying?" And I'm looking at it, I'm reading it, and yeah, but this is incredibly long for some weird reason. And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be nice if somebody went through all the books that were written in extremely overcomplicated ways and just shortened them all by reducing all those extremely overcomplicated sentences into very short sentences? And then I thought to myself, hey, wait a minute, why don't I try that with AI? So I took a photo of it and asked ChatGPT to turn this incredibly lengthy and ridiculous sentence into a very short sentence without losing the meaning, and it actually did. Here's a sentence. Inasmuch as certain men have set the truth aside and bring in lying words and vain genealogies, which, as the apostle says, minister questions rather than godly edifying, which is in faith, and by means of their craftily constructed plausibilities draw away the minds of the inexperienced and take them captive, in brackets, I have felt constrained, my dear friend, to compose the following treatise in order to expose and counteract their machinations. What the heck? Why would you write this? So just like this, maybe you should also work on making all sentences shorter to make it accessible. That'll be a very good endeavor.
That would be good. That would be very based.